Ashley Tullis, and professionally, I'm a realtor with Realty One Group Mountain Desert. But today, I'm just another citizen of Flagstaff, and we are talking common sense. So we have Jacki Tait with us today from Team 323, my team lead, to share her common sense with us. Hey, Jacki, how you doing?
I'm good, Ashley. How are you?
Doing good. Doing great. So what is your common sense that you would like to share with us?
Well, Ashley, I figured since you and I work together in real estate that I should maybe keep it on the real estate topic. So my common sense is simply that if you are looking to do anything in real estate, you need to hire a realtor.
I agree. If you're trying to do anything in real estate, you need a realtor, but maybe people listening don't quite get it. So let's start kind of from the beginning.
Sure.
Tell us your background in real estate.
You got it. Well, what's interesting is that I started in real estate in 2002. And the reason I decided to get my license is because I was working with a realtor, but that realtor did not at all understand what we were looking to do at the time. So I was looking to buy my first investment property, and I felt a little frustrated with the realtor that I was working with. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get my license, and I will just represent myself on my investment properties. And then when I went to school, a couple of things happened. Number one, I learned that it is so much more involved than what you think. So as the general public, you really don't know all of the intricacies and legalities that go on behind the scenes in real estate. But the other thing that happened is I fell in love with it. I thought, oh, I really like all this, because to me, it's very intriguing to be able to dig into what those legalities are. And for me, it's really, it's my fulfillment to be able to take all of that knowledge and put it into a unique puzzle. Every time with every client, it's always different. So to be able to take all of those little pieces and put them together to help the client, I really enjoy that. So that was in 2002, and I have been in the real estate industry ever since. I started as an agent, and then I have worked for the corporate offices for a Fortune 150 title company, and I also worked for a mortgage company in Scottsdale, helping their loan officers coach their realtor clients. And then I got back into real estate, and I haven't looked back since, and that was in 2013.
Okay. So you kind of got your license, it sounds like, and then sort of worked, maybe not as an agent, and then you were an agent.
I worked as an agent first. So that was the first couple of years I worked as an agent, like I said, to represent myself, but I did decide to work with clients at that point as well. So for the first couple of years, I worked with clients, and then I had the opportunity with the title company, so that's when I moved over there.
Gotcha. Okay. Really cool. It's kind of good to hear the background. And it's really neat that you had a bad experience with another realtor, and so you're like, you know what? If this person's doing this poorly, why don't I just learn how to do this well, help myself and other people? So I like that.
That's very true. And so when I bought my first house, I had a really great real estate agent. She was fantastic. She didn't work the area I was looking for the investment property in, which is why I wasn't using her, but she was so good. So she kind of inspired me a little bit. So it was a little bit of a 1-2 punch where I had a great realtor who I thought, oh, I can emulate what she did well. And then I had the bad experience and be like, well, I'm not going to do that at all, like what that person's doing, and combine those into a successful career.
Nice. I like that. Learning from other people's mistakes and successes. So.
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, it is very important to have a realtor, because before I jumped into real estate, I had never bought a house. I didn't know, all of the kind of ins and outs at all. So I'm sure a lot of people don't know. And that's what a good realtor does, is they kind of make it so that the client doesn't see all the wobbly parts, and they don't know that maybe something's going wrong right at the very beginning, because they don't have to worry about that. That's for us to worry about. So
Absolutely true. In fact, I have a client I'm working with right now, and I always tell her, like, for whatever reason, this particular transaction has had a lot of bumps in the road. And so when I call her, though, I don't call her and let her know about the bump in the road until I have the solution. And so I always call and say, okay, here's what happened, but here's how we can fix it. What do you think? And she told me the other day, she's like, I so appreciate that, because she said, I don't know how to solve these problems. And so I think that's really important, to be able to solve the problem for your client, like, or at least have a solution that you can run by the client to see what they think. And if they're, if they're good with it, then you move forward that way. And if they're not good, you find a different solution.
Yep. Yep. And they don't even have to carry all that stress and worry on them.
Exactly.
So,
That's what I will tell people when I first start working with them, is I let them know, like, listen, my job is to take as much of the stress off of your plate as possible. I can't take it all, because buying or selling a home is a stressful process. It just is. So I can't take all of the stress, but I do my best to take 90% of it. And for the 10% you still have, I usually will give them chocolate.
hey, that works. Yeah, that you can't take it all away, but chocolate sure helps.
Chocolate always helps.
So, what dreams have you helped clients turn into reality? Yeah,
I
give you a
love
second to think, if you
I
have.
love that. Okay. All right. Well, I have, oh my goodness, like, what's my favorite? Well, I'll just kind of tell you. Right now, I'm working with clients who are in a smaller home, and their goal is to expand their family. And so I was able to help them sell their smaller home to buy something larger so that they can have more children. That's what they want to do. I mean, how cool is that, to be able to help be the catalyst for that situation? I help people. I'm just thinking, in the last few months, I had a client who lives down in the valley, and they wanted to purchase a vacation home up here in northern Arizona. Was able to help them do that. And the cool thing about that is, sometimes you hear that story and you go, oh, they're just, it's just a second home. It's not that big of a deal. But it is a big deal, because they have family that's kind of all over the place. And so they wanted to create this one special getaway where they can bring their whole family together and spend quality time that they wouldn't spend otherwise. So, it's things like that really make a difference. Or I think about, I have a specific investor client in mind who I was able to help buy and sell a couple of different properties over the last couple of years. And I know that their goal is that the money that they use from their investments is to put their kids through college. So they're able to fund the education for their children so that their kids don't graduate with student loan debt, and they're able to get the education that they want. So, you get to help people fulfill this. And I just think that's the coolest thing.
And these are big, huge things that affect not just like one day in someone's life or even 1 year.
Yeah.
It's their kids' college. Like, that's really cool. I had one, and they bought a little chunk of land. It was a couple of acres, and it was nearby Flagstaff. And I just got married in October, as you know. But these people bought their land, and their dream is to build their own barn dominium.
Oh.
And they are going to get married on the land, and they're going to have their like little miniature cow there. So it's like really cool to see, like, we get to help people achieve these things, and they're not just little things, like, they're big things.
That's really cool. I love that. And I want to see a picture of the mini cow when it happens.
No, me too.
I always joke around, the best part of my career is getting to see other people's pets and other people's babies.
Oh, yeah. And their pictures on their walls. That's what I like.
That's the best. Or like, if they have, I know I have a client from a long time ago, their kid's actually in junior high now, but when they were a baby, we went to the signing, and they were a young couple, they were buying their first home, and so they're sitting in the title company trying to absorb all the documents they have to sign, and their baby got fussy, and I'm like, give me that baby. So I just like walked around the office with the baby. I kept the baby happy, and they just thought, that was so great. And she even left it when she left an online review. She said something about that. But I just think about that like, no, that was my honor. I was so happy to hold that baby. So, hey, it has its perks for sure.
Yep, all part of the job. What inspires you the most in the field of real estate? Obviously, maybe we talked about helping people achieve their dreams, but maybe there's something else, maybe something bigger. What inspires you the most? What's the number one?
So I feel very blessed that I do get to help other people through what is traditionally a difficult process. I do this all day, every day. This is my full-time career. And so for me, I know a lot of the different pitfalls and things like that happen. So it really is part of the juice for me to be able to take my wisdom, my knowledge, my expertise, and help people who are going through stressful situations. I just talked about a few situations where people are buying or selling real estate because of happy life moments, but there's a lot of times when people have to buy or sell because of not so happy moments, whether it's a divorce or a death in the family, or a loss of a job or things like that. So they're already going through something super stressful, and I get to come alongside of them, and I can't make life better. I can't, wave a magic wand and take away their pain, but I can come alongside of them, and in my area of expertise, I can help make their life a little bit easier and help that transition maybe go smoother than it would have without having an expert by their side. So that inspires me a lot. But beyond that, I would say that I love what I do. I truly love every morning I wake up. Every day is different. Every client situation is different. Even when they're the same, they're different people. This investor is looking to help their college fund, and this investor is looking to help the kids' college fund, and yet they're just two different ways of approaching it, or things like that. So I do get inspired by the fact that every day is different, and so for me, it's fun to rise to that challenge. I don't thrive where every day is the same. I thrive in that type of a situation. So
nice. I love that. Yeah, every day is different, and you don't really know exactly how it's going to go. You sign up, you get a phone call one day and you're like, all right, how's this going to end?
No, that's true. And sometimes what you think is going to happen in the beginning of working with a client is completely different than what ends up happening. And that's okay. You go with the flow. But other than that, obviously what inspires me is my family, my specific situation, being able to, my husband and I are empty nesters, so being able to spend time with my husband and doing some different travels and things like that. And then my daughters are adults, so being able to see them thrive. What's really great for me is I have a daughter who's a business owner. She owns a local dog training company. And so watching her become a business owner because she saw, my husband and I as business owners. And so a lot of the mystery of entrepreneurship was, solved for her getting into business for herself. So that was cool. I have another daughter who's in sales. So she's watched Mark and I be, and what that looks like in sales, and what it looks like to be on 100% commission, and, things like that, and not have a base salary and all of that fun stuff. So, it's just, that inspires me a lot too.
Yeah, to be able to inspire other people. Well, speaking of that, you were my mentor when I first started out with Realty One Group. You and the other team lead, Stacy.
Yep.
So you guys have kind of raised me in the real estate game. So I'd have to say, very inspiring. Because
I love that.
Yeah. I started out as a teacher, which I love teaching, but I was just looking for kind of a switch, and real estate was always in the back of my mind. But I don't know. It seems like I didn't know all the ins and outs. Never bought a house before, so I kind of felt like that was a prerequisite. Um, and so getting into it, you've really been a good, very much of an inspiration. So thank
Well,
you for
thank you.
that.
You're welcome. And you're very good at it. I just want to say, like, Ashley, you're so good. You're a natural in real estate. In fact, I had another agent that is you have the listing, you're working with the seller, and this agent is working with the buyer, and that agent reached out to me yesterday to tell me how great you are to work with. And just, I mean, you're very professional, but you're very calming. You're always looking for the solution, and you're a natural at it. So you're very good. So kudos
Well,
to you.
thank you, thank you. I learned from the best.
Thanks.
323 here in Flagstaff. So,
Yay.
well, that's good. And I love it. I love real estate. It's the people that you get to meet, and it is the problem solving, because everything is a little bit different. So, with your years of experience, the problem solving probably comes more naturally to you. For me, I'm calling and leaning on you guys, the team leads, and still learning some of these different ways of thinking outside of the box to solve these different problems. So it's not like you can just jump in your first year and know all of this, unless maybe, I feel like if your parent was a realtor and you got into it, then still you'd have that as a kid kind of growing up. But you can't really just jump in your first year and know everything. So I think a team is very valuable for anyone who's
I
trying to
agree.
start real estate.
I agree. And even as such, you mentioned Stacy Ehrenreich, who's my business partner, the other team leader, and you work with obviously both of us. And Stacy and I talk almost every day because we're also running things, scenarios by each other, or, just discussing different ways to improve and enhance and things like that. So I think in real estate, I mean, again, I've been in this industry now for 24 years, and every day is new. So there's always something to learn. So I think the worst thing, and maybe in any industry, not just real estate, but the worst thing you can do is just sort of rest on your laurels and be like, well, I know everything now. I don't think any of us ever know anything. And so, there's a saying out there, if you're not growing, you're dying. But I kind of twist that and say, if you're not learning, you're dying, because you're stagnant and you're not continuing to improve and enhance. So that's my 2 cents,
Yeah.
my common sense.
And it should be common sense, but sometimes we need to hear these things again and again and again. Starting out in real estate, I mean, it was probably different than 2026 times. So what was the kind of biggest surprise from maybe real estate then versus real estate now?
Good question. So real estate back then, you have to understand, like, this was in 2002, and like we were all just getting online. Like, not everybody even had email addresses. I still remember driving around in the vehicle, having to go physically get the contract signed, then go find a Kinko's, which doesn't even exist anymore, but to go find a Kinko's so I could scan it in and fax the offer over to the other agent. So yeah, like now I feel like a dinosaur, but that is true. That's changed a lot. Obviously, technology has been a huge help in getting our, being able to do our business so much different. When I first got into the business, there was no such thing as Zillow or Realtor.com or any of these third-party aggregated systems where you could go online and search for properties. And so I still remember I was in one of the first waves of agents who got their own personal website. And one of my value propositions was that I could tell my clients, hey, you can actually go to www. And then you can actually search for homes there, and that was a huge deal. So, things have definitely changed. But I think I will say this. When I first got into the business, it was more so my job to give information. I feel like consumers are now far more knowledgeable. So now my job isn't necessarily to give the information as much as it is to help interpret the information. And so, it can be very easy to go online. If you want to sell your house, you can go online, you can look up Zillow and you can see what their Zestimate says. But your Zestimate, Zillow has no idea what your kitchen looks like, and the fact that you either have never updated it, so it's fallen apart a little bit, or that you just did a major renovation and you have beautiful countertops and new cabinets and a nice backsplash and brand new high-end appliances. Zillow doesn't know these things, so it can't approach that, from that perspective. And also, if you go online and look for a valuation on your property, the algorithm doesn't know that, the house 3 streets over is actually in a completely different neighborhood. They just see its proximity and they think it is, oh, this is a comparable property to this one. A really good analysis of that, if you're in the Flagstaff area, where Kachina Village is and where Forest Highlands is. So to get to Kachina Village, you have to go down I-17 and come in and around. To get to Forest Highlands, you go down Beulah and come in and around. However, the two of them back up to each other from a land perspective. You can't drive to one or the other, but they back up to each other from a land perspective. So there's a lot of times when the houses on the back end of Kachina Village and the houses on the back end of Forest Highlands are crossing over into the algorithm. Well, Forest Highlands is a very exclusive gated golf community, and Kachina Village is a home, this is where people are living in their homes. This is where it is more local friendly, whereas Flagstaff, or I'm sorry, I was going to say Flagstaff Ranch, Forest Highlands is a lot of second homes and things like that. So it's just two completely different lifestyles, completely different style of homes, sizes, all of those things. And yet the algorithm a lot of times will confuse those two things to go together. So it's things like that where you can look online for information, but you definitely, it's to your benefit to have somebody in the market who is an expert to interpret that data.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something that is a big shift, like maybe in the past 20 years, where people are thinking, oh, I can do this myself. Everything's online. I'm just going to look at my Zestimate and put it on. And, someone will just put an offer in, right? So,
and Ashley, I always tell people too, the thing that exactly what you just said is so much the public perception of what a real estate agent does. And again, it's because if we're doing our job well, you don't know a lot of the things that are going on behind the scenes to help things progress. So I like to always tell people, it's really only about 25% of my job. If you're working with me as your listing agent, it's only about 25% of my job to market your home and find a buyer. The other 75% of my job that you are hiring me to do starts when we get an offer, and helping you negotiate and helping you get through the inspection items to make sure you're properly disclosing. And then also in that period of time when we're under contract, I don't know that most of the public realizes that there's about 25 different people who are going to touch that file to get it across the finish line. So as a real estate agent, that's part of our value, is that we are coordinating these 25 people. So a lot of times people, when they want to do for sale by owner, like you said, oh, I can look at my Zestimate, put it online, and somebody will buy my house. Well, okay, but do you know what to do when you get an offer? And do you understand all the different people that you're going to need to coordinate and things like that? So I just think that's an important thing for people to realize.
I agree. I think it would be really scary if you didn't have any real estate experience, you had never read a contract before, and you can't even use our contracts because you're not a realtor. So I think it would be really scary to try and buy a house without using a realtor. I've never really thought about that, because my experience with real estate even before getting in was, my mom had bought a few houses. She always just calls a real estate person. And, I was a kid, so I was just like, oh, humbum. We go and look at a few houses and then, oh, we have a new one. Yeah. So it was kind of fun. But even my story, when I moved to Pine Top, or Show Low, Arizona, which is basically Pine Top, when I left Missouri a couple years ago. And then my mom moved out to Pine Top about a year after I did. So she was working with a local realtor, but she wasn't in town. So she was in Missouri, and I was the one who would go and see all of the houses. And I'd be like, oh, mom cannot live here. And it was so cute. So it's like that was one of the first little things that I did to kind of put my feet in. So, but
That's
I
awesome.
figured it was really fun because, mom would pick out the houses and I would just go and look at them. And
Yeah.
none of them were perfect. There's never the perfect house, but there was one and it was pretty perfect except for the shared carport. So mom, if you're watching, she'll know. But she's like, yeah, that carport. Anyways.
Well, I think that's a cool story because it's true. It's not like there's so many things that go into it, and you kind of had your first taste of it, and now you are a property owner, and so look at just the things you've learned. And frankly, when my husband and we bought a house in a different state a while back, and then we sold the house in the different state, and we used a realtor every time we did something in a different state. We personally used realtors, even though we are in real estate, because real estate laws and contracts and all of the things, they vary state to state. And so the way that business is done in Arizona is different than the way that business is done in the 49 other states. And so, I'm a big proponent. You don't know what you don't know. And so I was like, no, it's well worth paying a realtor to represent our best interests because I don't want to get us in trouble because I'm thinking, well, this is how it's done, but it's not done that way in that state. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, and even just the area knowledge. I mean, like if you're trying to buy a house in Texas, you're not going to fly out there 6 times, so you need someone who's got their boots on the ground a little bit. So
Absolutely, yeah. So
well, good. Let's wrap up here a little bit.
Okay.
This has been really good. I think people listening have gotten a lot of little gems and little stories and things like that. So thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Our common sense is that everyone needs a realtor. So if you need a realtor, feel free to call Jackie. Feel free to call me.
Yeah, definitely feel free to call me, but I highly recommend working with Ashley. She is one of the best out there, so you cannot go wrong by hiring Ashley as your real estate agent.
Well, thank you. One of the best because I learned from the best. So that's Team 323, all of Realty One Group Mountain Desert. But thanks for being here with us. Do you have one last little insight for our listeners before they go?
Yeah, I think outside of real estate, I know you are doing this podcast for Flagstaff, and I will just say Flagstaff is by far the best place to live, work, and play. It is so much fun. So I'm really excited to just hear from other Flagstaff residents and things like that, what their common sense is for your podcast. So I'm excited to learn more about Flagstaff through your podcast because I feel like we've lived here for a long time and I know a lot of the little ins and outs of it, but it's just the coolest place to be.